Today we're going to hear from 2 Samuel chapter 5, verses 1 to 5, and hear, listen, questions. Then all the tribes of Israel came to David at Hebron and said, "Look, we are your bone and flesh. For some time, while Saul was king over us, it was you who led out Israel and brought it in. The Lord said to you, 'It is you who shall be shepherd of my people Israel, you who shall be ruler for Israel.' So all the elders of Israel came to the king at Hebron, and King David made a covenant with them at Hebron before the Lord, and they anointed David king of Israel. David was 30 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 40 years. At Hebron, he reigned over Judah 7 years and 6 months. And at Jerusalem, he reigned over all Israel and Judah 33 years. David occupied the stronghold and named it the City of David. David built the city all around from Millo inward. And David became greater and greater, for the Lord, the God of hosts, with him. Word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God.
We all, I think, have experienced moments in life that we reveal something about ourselves that we don't necessarily intend to reveal. Many years ago, this happened to a young man named Matt Starr. Matt Starr was at American West Field and watching the Texas Rangers play the St. Louis Cardinals. And a foul ball got hit into his section where he was watching the game. And he was so excited, this 28-year-old landscaper jumped over the seat in front of him and shoved a 4-year-old child out of the way so that he could get that foul ball. The child's mother took exception to it and hit him with one of the programs, but he didn't care. He had the ball. And it was caught on the big screen at the ballpark. So everybody saw it. And people were so upset at what happened to this 4-year-old boy that throughout the game, members from both teams came up and gave that little boy a jersey or a baseball bat or something that was autographed. And that video went viral, and it became national news. And now Matt found himself being the most disliked person in America. And his mother was interviewed, and she had said to him, she goes, "I said to him, you trampled a 4-year-old boy to get this ball." And the man just said, "Oh, well." Well, it turns out that Matt was also a youth minister at a nearby church. And so when their church began to get some unexpected fame, they had a conversation with Matt, and he promised to give the ball back, buy tickets for the entire family to go to the game. I am sure that Matt was a fine youth director. I don't know if he's still this one. And I'm sure if he'd had a chance to think it through, he would have handled it differently. But he saw a ball, didn't care about the kid, jumped out and grabbed it. And I can't say exactly how we should interpret that behavior, except it reveals something that lies within Matt that Matt probably would rather not let people see. We all have moments, we all have things we know about ourselves that, quite frankly, we don't necessarily want other people to know about us. Sometimes things reveal themselves. David had such a moment long before he was made king over Israel. David revealed something about his character in one of the greatest stories we have about David, about the story of David and Goliath. And it's so discreet, you could almost miss it. But if you remember, when David wanted to go take on Goliath and represent the nation of Israel, he was trying to persuade Saul, who was the king then, to let him be the champion of that fight. And as he's explaining his credentials, David says to Saul, "I used to be a shepherd." Technically that's true, because that morning he was a shepherd. But you see, David has always been the last in line. He was the youngest. He was always the one that was given the worst job, the least position. He was the one that nobody expected much out of him. You may remember that when Samuel came to anoint a king out of David's family, they didn't even bring David down to be looked at. Well, I used to be a shepherd. Way back then, this morning. And I think that says something about David because it reveals itself throughout the rest of the story of David in different ways. David had a problem with pride. David had a strong desire to be recognized and respected and appreciated, which we all have that desire, but for David, it infected him in ways that became destructive not only to him, but to the nation of Israel. And we catch a glimpse of it with that one little statement. Because we all know, right? We all know, because we've read up to this point, you're still a shepherd. Well, I used to be a shepherd. It reveals something about himself. So we get to this moment now where this shepherd, this youngest child, this least of a small family, becomes the most powerful man in the nation. Everybody, every church can reveal things about themselves without intending. I've shared with you one of my appointments. I was the senior associate pastor at Lake Jackson United Methodist Church, First Methodist Lake Jackson. And First Methodist Lake Jackson used to be one of what we call a flagship church, major church, strong church. And so when they asked me to be the senior associate pastor, that would mean that I would go and pretty much run the staff of the senior pastor, kind of like an executive pastor. Come to find out, not only was I the senior associate pastor, I was the only associate pastor. You can't really be a senior associate pastor if you're the only associate pastor. And when I asked the senior pastor, why does it say senior associate pastor on my business card when I'm the only associate pastor you've got? He said, well, the church is nowhere near as strong as it used to be. And they're not ready to admit that they don't have a senior associate pastor anymore. So if it's just the same to you, we're going to keep that title. And I got to be honest with you, I didn't mind being called the senior associate pastor. So it reveals something about me and something about the church as well. We all have those moments that reveal things about ourselves, reveal things about others. So we have David, who prior to becoming king is presented as this heroic and faithful leader, a man with a heart for God. And then this becomes a major turning point, not for the reason that you think it does. Yes, it's a major turning point when he is finally officially made king. But it's at this point in the story that the narrative of David begins to change in ways we haven't seen much before. David begins making mistakes. David begins making bad decisions. David becomes so prideful about his position that he's wanting to build a temple for God, even though that's not something that God wanted, and he had to be corrected about that. David decided not to go off to war at the time when he should have gone off to war, and instead had an affair with another man's wife, and then had her husband killed after he became king. After he no longer had to tell people he used to be a shepherd. In the moment after the moment when David had achieved all of the power and all of the fame and all of the status he ever wanted, that's when we begin to see moral failings, a lack of faith. And from then on, David's life is filled with mistake and then return to God, mistake and return to God. And it's filled with problem after problem after problem. Right after he got everything he ever wanted. You know, when the scripture came up in the lectionary, and Susie asked me, "Are you going to preach the scripture?" And I said, "Yeah, but I'm not sure how to connect it to real life because, I mean, what do I do? How to conduct yourself when you become king? Because that's kind of the story. David becomes king. What do you do with that? Because none of us, I think, are going to get that status anytime soon. But it's interesting that what happens to David when he becomes king actually makes David a lot more like you and I than we realize. Not because of his royal status, but because of the way he handles success. Because of what happens happens to him when he achieves a level of status where he no longer has to be dependent upon anyone. He's the king. And you know, I think for all of us, our most faithful moments are usually when things are not going well. The times we feel closest to God are the times when every day is a struggle. But when things are going well and we kind of have things rolling the way that we want, those are the times that maybe we skip our prayer time, or don't read our Bible, or don't think too much about where is God in the middle of this. Because right now things are pretty good. And I think in that way we have a lot in common. There was a university that studied the dynamics of power and how people handle themselves when they're given power. And they created an artificial situation. They created an office environment. And in some of the scenarios, they gave the person who was the manager not any power at all. He or she could maybe encourage some employees, but they couldn't really make any decisions. And then in other scenarios, they gave the person who was to be the supervisor enormous power, absolute control over who worked, where, and when. And inevitably, throughout that experiment, in every scenario, the person who was given enormous power became abusive towards employees, even though it was a fake scenario. He wouldn't listen to them. He was condescending. He didn't really listen to anybody's ideas. And it just seemed like even in an artificial scenario, power corrupted this person. They did another version of this study with a game of Monopoly. And they sat down and two people were to play a game of Monopoly. I don't know if you're familiar with Monopoly, the money and the properties and board pieces. So they set the game up this way. One player gets 3 times the amount of money to start the game that they're supposed to get. The other player, and he gets to roll 2 dice. The other player gets half the amount of money they're supposed to get to start the game, and they get to roll 1 dice. So the deck is stacked. But even then, the player who had the most money and both dice and most power began to top over the other player, cut them off over their things. Eventually, more often than not, the player that had the most money would take the liberty of moving the other player's piece for them after they rolled their 1 dice. There is something about having power that causes us to act ways we wouldn't normally act. And this is what's happening to David. David has a problem with pride, and now he has unlimited power. What could possibly go wrong? Right? We all have problems in our life, whether it's pride or something else. We all have brokenness. And sometimes the pressure of hard times reveals things that we don't necessarily care for, but it's just as likely that the pressure of good times and success can reveal those things as well. David becomes like king, becomes a king. And in that moment, he becomes more like us than we could have ever imagined. When we come to church, we come to a place where we admit that we're powerless. We come to church, we come to a place where we all know that we're wrong. We all know that there's something deeply wrong with us. And we come to a place where we can sit side by side with other good people who also know that there's a problem, there's something not right with their lives. And God can do something with that. It's when somebody becomes prideful, when a church becomes so prideful that they think they can do what they want to do without giving consideration to where God is in the midst of it, that people in churches can get into trouble. There's just last year, December of last year, there was a concert held in Philadelphia. It was a concert put together, it was called A Symphony for a Broken Orchestra by David Lane. The Symphony for a Broken Orchestra was put together that summer because the school district that year had radically cut the budgets of every music department. So musicians of all kinds, of all levels of skill, got together and they all brought a broken instrument to a concert. So someone would bring a trumpet that you couldn't make any noise when you blew into it, but you could make noise by clacking it and make a noise with that. The orchestra included amateurs and professionals, even members of the Philadelphia Orchestra. The youngest member was a 9-year-old cellist, and the oldest was an 82-year-old oboist. There were 400 gathered together. They had a trumpet held together with painter's tape, a violin with no A string, a bow that had lost most of its hair, a cello carried in multiple pieces. And they began to make music. And each one, under the leadership of a conductor, began to make whatever noise they could with the instrument that they had. One person would just scrape a bowl with the silhouette of a violin body, and that created an interesting sound. Another person, a cellist, made a noise by turning a stringless peg over and over the street. But an amazing thing happened with all those broken instruments. Eventually, they began to sound good. In their own way, in a disjointed fashion, working together, each person with a broken instrument under the guidance of a leader was able to make a joyful noise. And to have a nice little protest about the cutting of school budgets as well. The point was made. But that's kind of why we have the church. You and I have stuff within us that we just assume people not see. And no, that's not going to be the next point in the sermon, what my stuff is. By now you should probably know. We all have that stuff. And the pressures of hard times and pressures of success tend to reveal those things. But the good news in this story is that as much as David messed up, as badly as David had disappointed God, even as wicked as some of his decisions truly were, God never stopped loving David. God never stopped loving David. Because broken as he was, flawed as he was, prideful as he was, God knew that there was a heart in that person that still had love. The good news about David is that even when we are being our worst self, even when we do things that we thought I couldn't imagine, I don't want anybody to know about, God knows our hearts. God knows the places where we're broken. And God continues to draw us towards Himself because God has love for us. When the church comes together in worship, it's a room full of broken instruments under the guidance of a skillful conductor. And even though we're all broken, there's a beautiful noise that can come out of this place. Let's pray. Holy God, we are grateful for your love and for your presence in this room. God, each and every one of us have had moments in our lives, maybe having one now, where it's not our best moment. Forgive us, God, for those times when we do the things you've told us not to do and fail to do the things you've called us to do. Help us not to hide from our brokenness, but to accept it and to trust that you, by your